So Biden said you need an F-15 and nuclear bombs to fight against the government, as well as the David Chipman nomination for head of the AFT has hit a snag. So let's talk about this. But real quick before we jump into this video, if you've been searching Craigslist for an F-15, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. I also want to give a shout out to one of the main sponsors of the channel, that is USCCA. Through your membership, you get training, education, and self-defense liability protection. So if you carry a firearm, I highly recommend you look into USCCA, and I'll put a link to them down in the details section. I also want to thank Route 66 Shooting Sports Park in San Bernardino. If you came out to the recent Armed in May event, you know how amazing that range is, as well as how amazing that staff is. So if you're in the LA area, I highly recommend you check out Route 66 Shooting Sports Park, and thank you again for them sponsoring this channel. So this week has been really interesting as far as two-way news, and it's been a lot, and it's been kind of hard to keep up with. Two of the things we're going to talk about in this video is one, that Joe Biden came out recently and gave a whole discussion once again about gun control and some things that he wants to implement. And during that discussion, he made some really interesting claims and just made some really laughable comments. On top of that, we also had the recent David Chipman nomination, and the vote in the Judiciary Committee hit kind of a snag in an 11-11 deadlock tie vote, and that has left us in an interesting situation from here on out, where a lot of you guys have been asking me what happens now with the whole David Chipman nomination, so we're going to talk about that as well. So jumping right in first to the whole comments made by Joe Biden in his discussion about gun control. Some of the prevalent comments that he made first was that individuals do not need 40, 50, 60, 100 rounds. You don't need to have those. And these are discussions that we've seen pop up quite a bit, especially if you're in the state of California like me, or in some of these more restrictive states. You hear these types of arguments being made all the time by government entities in the state level, but here you just have the president of the US as well making statements that you don't need 40, 50, 60, 100 rounds. You don't need a certain capacity to actually have in your possession. And then springboarding right after that, he then made that comment that now has led to memes galore about that individuals, if they wanted to fight against the government, you would need F-15s and nuclear bombs. And I think a lot of people at this point said, okay, that sounds good. The Second Amendment says that we have a Second Amendment right. Why should we not be able to buy F-15s and nuclear bombs? Now, there's a lot of satire that's going on around this, but it's just absolutely ridiculous that you have a president making these types of statements. And then you've seen memes pop around about like Palmer 80 F-15s being sold out. And then Palmetto State Armory came out with some memes about F-15s and nuclear bombs. So it's been really interesting, and it's just hilarious that you have the president of the United States making comments like that. And on top of the comments he was making about that you don't need 50, 60, 100 rounds, he made comments about, well, I've talked to a ton of hunters, and they would tell you as well that you don't need these large capacity magazines, or so-called large capacity magazines, or 50, 60, 100 rounds. You don't need that for hunting. But again, that's a tactic that's taken a lot by the left, trying to frame your Second Amendment rights in the context of hunting, when in reality, the Second Amendment has absolutely nothing to do with your right to hunt. It has to do with your individual right to self-defense, to protect yourself, your family, your friends, and other individuals, as well as your right to defend yourself, your friends, families, and others against tyrannical overreach and overstep by government entities, which was the whole point behind the Bill of Rights, because again, those founders and those framers had just come off oppression from the British government. And then he went on to discuss how he wants more gun control to be instituted, and wants Congress to institute these like expanded background checks, bans on so-called assault weapons, which has been a hot topic, especially for us right now in the state of California, and the individuals and states under the Ninth Circuit's kind of control. The whole assault weapons discussion has been very hot button topic right now. And so again, there's been a push at the federal level, at least by Biden, saying he wants something at a federal level to ban so-called assault weapons. And then he also discussed something that we've talked about a little bit here on this channel as well, which is the repeal of the PLCAA. Now, I'm not going to comprehensively talk about that. I have a video on my channel. You click this link right there where it takes you to that. But that is the liability protection for gun manufacturers and gun stores, so that they cannot be sued for criminal activity from a third party. So when a criminal commits a criminal activity, another third party who was actually subject to victimization by that criminal cannot then go and sue the gun manufacturer or gun store. Instead, that actual criminal has to be held liable. The PLCAA provides those gun manufacturers and those gun stores protection. Well, Biden here wants to repeal that. So pretty much that the whole gun industry can be sued into oblivion. And then the last thing he brought up in his discussion, which springboards us into the second part of this video, is that he was calling on Congress and those individuals to actually confirm his nomination of David Chipman as the head of the AFT. And yes, once again, he said the AFT. If it wasn't bad enough that he said it once, he said it again realized it, then tried to correct himself, but it just shows you how just oblivious this individual is. So a lot of you guys have been asking me what's going on with the nomination of David Chipman. Well, he was up for a vote in the Judiciary Committee, and he needed to make it out of that committee to be voted on, and there was an 11-11 deadlock. And so a lot of you guys were asking me, what does that mean that there was an 11-11 tie in that committee? And so for reference, everything I'm going to be talking about in this section, I will also leave a link down in the details section so you can reference it for yourself. But if you look at the Senate Consideration of Presidential Nominations Committee and Floor Procedure, there is a new kind of rule that was put in place, and this states that in the 107th Congress, the Senate agreed to resolution, so Senate Resolution 27, a resolution establishing procedures that will be in effect this Congress as long as a Senate membership is evenly divided between the two political parties. The resolution created a process by which a Senate majority can vote to discharge a committee from consideration of a matter, including a nomination, if it is not reported because of a tie vote in committee. And that is exactly where we're at. We're at a tie vote in committee. And so this talks about what happens after that. So in layman's term, what does that all mean? Because I know a lot of you guys may not still understand what that all means. Well, since there's a tie in the committee, there can be a Senate motion to discharge that committee and essentially move that committee vote back onto the full Senate floor. Now, this is something that's going to happen specifically to actually discharge the committee. So it's going to be a vote to discharge that committee. It's not an actual vote on the confirmation of David Chipman. It is first a vote to discharge that committee and bring it over to the Senate so that the Senate can have it put on their calendar and then actually have a vote after that. So it's kind of a first step process to remove it from the committee back into the Senate. And once it is removed from that committee, put back into the Senate, put on their calendar, then there will be a scheduled vote in the Senate. Now, this is all really tricky here, and why this has kind of hit a little bit of a roadblock for the Democrats is because there was already an 11-11 tie in the committee, and it's already going to be a tight margin in the Senate. So first, since they have to get that vote to discharge, that could be tight in itself as well. So this is why it's going to be important, and I'm going to call you guys once again to reach out to your representatives, to reach out to your Senate representatives, to reach out to Manchin, Sinema, all these individuals who are kind of on the fringe in the Senate. Reach out to them and let them know that you do not agree with the nomination of David Chipman, that you do not want them to vote in favor of discharging the committee, because again, to vote against the discharge of the committee could pretty much shut this down, remove it from going to the Senate so that they can actually vote on it. So there is an opportunity now to kind of kill the David Chipman nomination right here and now. And also, even if it does get in the full kind of Senate vote, gets put on the calendar and they vote on it, even then it's going to be a tight margin. They're going to have to get every single Democrat to vote according to party line and then also get that Kamala Harris, which we know they would get the Kamala Harris, but there's already some Democrats who are kind of on the fringe saying they're not very sure about the nomination of David Chipman. So again, it's really important that we continue to put pressure on the Senate to shut down the nomination of David Chipman. We still have time to shut this down. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and comment down below and I'll try to answer the best of my ability. Also, even if you don't have a question, just go ahead and leave a comment to fuel the algorithm. Make sure you're liking and subscribing to this channel because that all helps to fuel that algorithm. Push this video out to more individuals who want to hear 2A news but just don't get this news traditionally because the algorithm is just not pushing it. But if you do all of those things, it really does help to get this video out to more individuals. So as always, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and never forget, this nation was built by armed scholars and this nation will be maintained by armed scholars.